Book 13. Argument. The fourth battle continued, in which Neptune assists the Greeks. The acts of Idomeneus. Neptune, concerned for the loss of the Grecians, upon seeing the fortification forced by Hector, who had entered the gate near the station of the Ajaxes, assumes the shape of Alcas, and inspires those heroes to oppose him. Then, in the form of one of the generals, encourages the other Greeks who had retired to their vessels. The Ajaxes form their troops in a close phalanx, and put a stop to Hector and the Trojans. Several deeds of valor or performed Meriones, losing his spear in the encounter, repairs to seek another at the tent of Idomeneus. This occasions a conversation between those two warriors, who return together to the battle. Idomeneus signalizes his courage above the rest. He kills Cophronis, Asius, and Elephas. Deiphobus and Annius march against him, and at length Idomeneus retires. Menelaus wounds Helenus and kills Pisander. The Trojans are repulsed on the left wing. Hector still keeps his ground against the Ajaxes, till, being galled by the Laurian slingers and archers, Polydamas advises to call a council of war. Hector approves of his advice, but goes first to rally the Trojans. Upbraids Paris, rejoins Polydamas, meets Ajax again, and renews the attack. The 28th day still continues. The scene is between the Grecian wall and the seashore. When now the Thunderer on the sea-beat coast had fixed great Hector and his conquering host, he left them to the fates, in bloody fray, to toil and struggle through the well-fought day. Then turned to Pherae from the field of fight, those eyes that shed insufferable light, to where the Mysians prove their martial force, and hardy Thracians tame the savage horse, and where the far-famed ship Imogen strays, renowned for justice and for length of days. Thrice happy race, that, innocent of blood, for milk, Inoxius, seek their simple food. Jove sees delighted and avoids the sin of guilty Troy. Of arms and dying men, no aid, he deems, to either host is given, while his high law suspends the powers of heaven. Meantime the monarch of the watery main observed the Thunderer, nor observed in vain. In Samothracia, on a mountain's brow, whose waving woods o'erturn the deeps below, he sat and round him cast his azure eyes, where Ida's misty tops confusely rise. Below, fair Ilion's glittering spires were sent, the crowded ships and sable seas between. There from the crystal chambers of the main emerged, he sat, and mourned his Cargives slain. At Jove incensed, with grief and fury stone, prone down the rocky steep he rushed along. Fierce as he passed, the lofty mountains nod. The forest shakes, earth trembled as he trod, and felt the footsteps of the immortal god. From round to round 3 ample strides he took, and, at the 4th, the distant Aegae shook. Far in the bay his shining palace stands, eternal frame, not raised by mortal hands. This having reached, his brass-hoofed steeds he reins, fleet as the winds and decked with golden manes. Refulgent arms his mighty limbs enfold, immortal arms of adamant and gold. He mounts the car, the golden scourge applies. He sits superior and the chariot flies. His whirling wheels the glassy surface sweep. The enormous monsters rolling o'er the deep gambol around him on the watery way, and heavy whales in awkward measures plait. The sea subsiding spreads a level plain, exalts and owns the monarch of the main. The parting waves before his coursers fly, the wandering waters leave his axle dry. Deep in the liquid regions lies a cave, between where Tenedos the surges lave, and rocky Imbrus breaks the rolling wave. There the great ruler of the azure round stopped his swift chariot, and his steeds unbound, fed with ambrosial turbish from his hand, and linked their fecklocks with a golden band. Infrangible, immortal, there they stay. The father of the floods pursues his way, where, like a tempest, darkening heaven around, or fiery deluge that devours the ground, the impatient Trojans, in a gloomy throng, embattled rolled, as Hector rushed along, to the loud tumult and the barbarous cry. The heavens re-echo and the shores reply. They vow destruction to the Grecian name, and in their hopes the fleets already flame. But Neptune, rising from the seas profound, the god whose earthquakes rock the solid ground, now wears a mortal form like Alcacene. Such his loud voice, and such his manly mien. His shouts incessant every Greek inspire, but most the Ajaxes adding fire to fire. 'Tis yours, O warriors, all our hopes to raise. O recollect your ancient worth and praise. 'Tis yours to save us, if you cease to fear. Flight more than shameful is destructive here. On other works though Troy with fury fall, and pour her armies o'er our battered wall, there Greece has strength, but this part o'erthrown, her strength were vain, I dread for you alone. Here Hector rages like the force of fire, vaunts of his gods, and calls high Jove his sire. If yet some heavenly power your breast excite, breathe in your hearts, and string your arms to fight. Greece yet may live, her threatened fleet maintain, and Hector's force, and Jove's own aid, be vain. Then with his scepter, that the deep controls, he tossed the chiefs, and steeled their manly souls. Strength, not their own, the touch divine imparts, prompts their light limbs, and swells their daring hearts. Then, as a falcon from the rocky height, her quarry seen impetuous at the sight, forth-springing instant, darts herself from high, shoots on the wing and skims along the sky. Such and so swift, the power of ocean flew, the wide horizon shut him from their view. The inspiring god Coelius' active son perceived the first, and thus to Telamon, some god, my friend, some god in human form, favoring descends and wills to stand the storm. Not Alcus this, the venerable seer, short as he turned I saw the power appear, I marked his parting and the steps he trod, his own bright evidence reveals a god. Even now some energy divine I share, and seen to walk on wings and tread in air. With equal cardor Telamon returns, my soul is kindled and my bosom burns, new rising spirits all my force alarm, lift each impatient limb and brace my arm. This ready arm unthinking shakes the dart, the blood pours back and fortifies my heart. Singly, methinks, yon towering chief I meet, and stretch the dreadful Hector at my feet, full of the god that urged their burning breast. The heroes thus their mutual warmth expressed. Neptune meanwhile the rooted Greeks inspired, who, breathless, pale, with length of labors tired, pant in the ships while Troy to conquest calls, and swarms victorious o'er their yielding walls. Trembling before the impending storm they lie, while tears of rage stand burning in their eye. Greece sunk they thought, and this their fatal hour, but breathe new courage as they feel the power. Tickwer and Leitus first his words excite, then stern Penthlius rises to the fight. Those, Debiris, in arms renowned, and Marion next, the impulsive fury found. Last Nestor's son the same bold ardor takes, while thus the god the martial fire awakes. O lasting infamy, O dire disgrace, to chiefs of vigorous youth and manly race! I trusted in the gods and you to see brave Greece victorious, and her navy free. Ah, no, the glorious combat you disclaim, and one black day clouds all her former fame. Heavens! What a prodigy these eyes survey, unseen, unthought, till this amazing day. Fly we at length from Troy's oft-conquered bands, and falls our fleet by such inglorious hands? A rout undisciplined, a straggling train, not born to glories of the dusty plain, like frighted fawns from hill to hill pursued, a prey to every savage of the wood. Shall these, so late who trembled at your name, invade your camps, involve your ships in flame? A change so shameful, say what cause has wrought the soldier's baseness or the general's fault? Fools! Will ye perish for your leader's vice, the purchase infamy and life the price? 'Tis not your cause, Achilles' injured fame, another's is the crime but yours the shame. Grant that our chief offend through rage or lust. Must you be cowards, if your king's unjust? Prevent this evil, and your country save. Small thought retrieves the spirits of the brave. Think and subdue. On dastards dead to fame, I waste no anger, for they feel no shame. But you, the pride, the flower of all our host, my heart weeps blood to see your glory lost. Nor deem this day, this battle, all you lose. A day more black, a fate more vile ensues. Let each reflect, who prizes fame or breath, on endless infamy, on instant death. For lo, the fated time, the appointed shore. Hark! The gates burst, the brazen barriers roar. Impetuous Hector thunders at the wall, the hour, the spot, to conquer or to fall. These words the Grecians' fainting hearts inspire, and listening armies catch the godlike fire. Faced at his post was each bold Ajax found, with well-ranged squadrons strongly circled round. So close their order, so disposed their fight, as Pallas' self might view with fixed delight. Or had the god of war inclined his eyes, the god of war had owned a just surprise. A chosen phalanx, firm resolved as fate, descending Hector and his battle weight. An iron scene gleams dreadful o'er the fields, armor and armor flocked, and shields and shields. Spears lean on spears, on targets throng, helms stuck to helms, and man drove man along. The floating plumes unnumbered wave above, as when an earthquake stirs the nodding grove, and clevelled at the skies with pointing rays. their brandished lances at each motion blaze, thus breathing death in terrible array. The close compacted legions urged their way, fierce they drove on, impatient to destroy. Troy charged the first, and Hector first of Troy, as from some mountain's craggy forehead torn, a rock's round fragment flies with fury born, which from the stubborn stone a torrent rends. Precipitate the ponderous mass descends, from steep to steep the rolling ruin bounds, at every shock the crackling wood resounds, still gathering force, it smokes and urged amain, whirls, leaps, and thunders down, impetuous to the plain. There stops so Hector, their whole force he proved, resistless when he raged, and, when he stopped, unmoved. On him the war is bent, the darts are shed, and all their falchions wave around his head. Repulsed he stands, nor from his stand retires, but with repeated shouts his army fires. Trojans, be firm, this arm shall make your way, 3 on square body and that black array. Stand, and my spear shall rout their scattering power, strong as they seem, embattled like a tower. For he that Juno's heavenly bosom warms, the first of gods, this day inspires our arms. He said and roused the soul in every breast, urged with desire of fame, beyond the rest. Forth marched Deiphobus, but, marching, held before his wary steps his ample shield. Bold Merion aimed a stroke, nor aimed it wide. The glittering javelin pierced the tough bolt hide, but pierced not through. Unfaithful to his hand, the point broke short, and sparkled in the sand. The Trojan warrior, touched with timely fear, on the raised orb to distance bore the spear. The Greek, retreating, mourned his frustrate blow, and cursed the treacherous lance that spared a foe. Then to the ships with surly speed he went, to seek a sure javelin in his tent. Meanwhile with rising rage the battle glows, the tumult thickens, and the clamor grows. By Ticor's arm the warlike Imbrius bleeds, the son of Mentor, rich in generous steeds. Ere yet to Troy the sons of Greece were led, in fair Pedaeus' verdant pastures bred, the youth had dwelt, remote from war's alarms, and blessed in bright Medusa's arms. This nymph, the fruit of Priam's ravished joy, allied the warrior to the house of Troy. To Troy, when glory all his arms, he came, and matched the bravest of her chiefs in fame. With Priam's sons, a guardian of the throne, he lived, beloved and hunward as his own. Inticor pierced between the throat and ear, he groans beneath the Telamonian spear, as from some far-seen mountain's airy crown, subdued by steel, a tall ash tumbles down, and soils its verdant tresses on the ground. So falls the youth, his arms the fall resound. Then Ticor, rushing to despoil the dead, from Hector's hand a shining javelin fled. He saw, and shunned the death, the forceful dart, sung on, and pierced Camphimachus' heart. Titus, son of Neptune's forceful line, vain was his courage and his race divine. Prostrate he falls, his clanging arms resound, and his broad buckler thunders on the ground. To seize his beamy helm the victor flies, and just had fastened on the dazzling prize, when Ajax' manly arm a javelin flung, full on the shield's round boss the weapon rung. He felt the shock, nor more was doomed to feel, secure in mail and sheathed in shining steel. Repulsed he yields, the victor Greeks obtain the spoils contested and bear off the slain, between the leaders of the Athenian line. Statius the brave, Menestius the divine, deplored Camphimachus' sad object, lies. Imbrius remains the fierce Aegeus' prize, as 2 grim lions bear across the lawn, snatched from devouring hounds a slaughtered fawn, in their fell jaws high lifting through the wood, and sprinkling all the shrubs with drops of blood. So these the chief, great Ajax from the dead, strips his bright arms, Coelius clops his head, tossed like a ball, and whirled in air away. At Hector's feet the gory visage lay, the god of ocean, fired with stern disdain, and pierced with sorrow for his grandson slain, inspires the Grecian hearts, confirms their hands, and breathes destruction on the Trojan bands. Swift as a whirlwind rushing to the fleet, he finds Philplain's famed Edemon of Crete, his pensive brow the generous care expressed, with which a wounded soldier touched his breast, whom in the chance of war a javelin tore, and his sad comrades from the battle bore. Into the surgeons of the camp he sent, that office paid he issued from his tent, fierce for the fight, to whom the god Bagan, in Tho's voice, Gandramon's valiant son, who ruled where Calydon's white rocks arise, and Plairon's haughty cliffs emblaze the skies. Where's now the imperious vaunt, the daring boast, of Greece victorious and proud Ilion lost? To whom the king, On Greece no blame be thrown, arms are her trade, and war is all her own. Her hardy heroes from the well-fought plains, nor fear withholds, nor shameful sloth detains, 'tis heaven, alas, and Jove's all-powerful doom, that far, far distant from our native home, wills us to fall inglorious. O my friend, once foremost in the fight, still prone to lend or arms our counsels, now perform thy best, and what thou canst not singly, urge the rest. Bessie, and thus the God whose force can make the solid globe's eternal basis shake, never may he see his native land, but feed the vultures on this hateful strand, who seeks ignobly in his ships to stay, nor dares to combat on this signal day. For this, behold, in horrid arms I shine, and urge thy soul to rival acts with mine. Together let us battle on the plain, two not the worst nor even this swore vain, not vain the weakest, if their force unite, but ours the bravest have confessed in fight. This said, he rushes where the combat burns, swift to his tent the Ratan king returns, from thence, two devlins glittering in his hand, and clad in arms that lightened all the strand. Fierce on the foe the impetuous hero drove, like lightning bursting from the arm of Jove, which to pale man the wrath of heaven declares, or terrifies the offending world with wars, in streamy sparkles, kindling all the skies. From pole to pole the trail of glory flies, thus his bright armor o'er the dazzled throng gleamed dreadful, as the monarch flashed along. Near his tent, Meriones attends, whom thus he questions, ever best of friends, O say, in every art of battle skilled, what holds thy courage from so brave a field? On some important message art thou bound, or bleeds my friend by some unhappy wound? Inglorious here my soul abhors to stay, and glows with prospects of approaching day. O Prince, Meriones replies, whose care leads forth the embattled sons of Crete to war. This speaks my grief, this headless lance I wield, the rest lies rooted in a Trojan shield. To whom the Ratan, enter and receive the wanted weapons those my tent can give. Spears I have store, and Trojan lanes all, that shed a lustre round the illumined wall. Though I, disdainful of the distant war, nor trust the dart, nor aim the uncertain spear, yet hand to hand I fight, and spoil the slain, and thence these trophies, and these arms I gain. Enter, and see on heaps the helmets rolled, and high-hung spears and shields that flame with gold. Nor vain said Marion or our martial toils, we too can boast of no ignoble spoils, but those my ship contains whence distant far, I fight conspicuous in the van of war. What need I more? If any Greek there be, who knows not Marion, I appeal to thee. To this, Idomeneus, the fields of fight have proved thy valour and unconquered might, and were some ambush for the foes designed, even there thy courage would not lag behind. In that sharp service, single from the rest, the fear of each or valour stands confessed. No force, no firmness, the pale coward shows, he shifts his place, his colour comes and goes, a dropping sweat creeps cold on every part, against his bosom beats his quivering heart. Terror and death in his wild eyeballs stare, with chattering teeth he stands, and stiffening hair, and looks a bloodless image of despair. Not so the brave, still doubtless, still the same, unchanged his colour and unmoved his frame, composed his thought, determined is his eye, and fixed his soul to conquer or to die. If aught disturb the tenor of his breast, 'tis but the wish to strike before the rest. In such cases thy blameless worth is known, and every art of dangerous war thy own. By chance of fight whatever wounds you bore, those wounds were glorious all, and all before, such as may teach 'twas still thy brave delight, topose thy bosom where thy foremost fight. But why, like infants, cold to honour's charms, stand we to talk when glory calls to arms? Go, from my conquered spears the choicest take, and to their owners send them nobly back. Swift at the word bold Marion snatched a spear, and breathing slaughter followed to the war. So Mars Armapodan invades the plain, the wide destroyer of the race of man. Terror, his best beloved son, attends his course, armed with stern boldness, and enormous force, the pride of haughty warriors to confound, and lay the strength of tyrants on the ground. From Thrace they fly, all to the dire alarms of warring Phlegians and Nepherian arms, invoked by both, relentless they dispose. To these glad conquest, murderous rout to those. So marched the leaders of the Rhetan train, and their bright arms shot horror o'er the plain. Then first spake Marion, shall we join the right, our combat in the centre of the fight? Are to the left our wonted swore lend, hazard and fame all parts alike attend. Not in the center Idomen replied, our ablest chieftains the main battle guide, each godlike Ajax makes that post his care, and gallant Teucer deals destruction there. Skilled or with shafts to gall the distant field, our bear close battle on the sounding shield. These can the rage of haughty Hector tame, safe in their arms, the navy fears no flame, till Jove himself descends, his bolts to shed, and hurl the blazing ruin at our head. Great must he be, of more than human birth, nor feed like mortals on the fruits of earth. Him neither rocks can crush, nor steel can wound, whom Ajax fells not on the ensanguined ground. In standing fight he mates Achilles' force, excelled alone in swiftness in the course. Then to the left our ready arms apply, and live with glory or with glory die, he said, and Marion to th appointed place, fierce as the god of battles, urged his pace. Soon as the foe the shining chiefs beheld, rush like a fiery torrent o'er the field. Their force embodied in a tide they pour, the rising combat sounds along the shore. As warring winds, in serious sultry rain, from different quarters sweep the sandy plain, on every side the dusty whirlwinds rise, and the dry fields are lifted to the skies. Thus by despair, hope, rage, together driven, met the black hosts, and a meeting darkened heaven. All dreadful glared the iron face of war, bristled with upright spears that flashed afar. Dire was the gleam of breastplates, helms, and shields, and polished arms emblazed the flaming fields. Tremendous scene, that general horror gave, but touched with joy the bosoms of the brave. Saturn's great sons in fierce contention vied, and crowds of heroes in their anger died. The sire of earth and heaven by Thetis won, to crown with glory Peleus' godlike son, willed not destruction to the Grecian powers, but spared awhile the destined Trojan towers, while Neptune, rising from his azure main, warred on the king of heaven with stern disdain, and breathed revenge and fired the Grecian train. Gods of one source, of one ethereal race, alike divine and heaven their native place, but Jove the greater firstborn of the skies, and more than men or gods supremely wise. For this, of Jove's superior might afraid, Neptune in human form concealed his aid. These powers enfold the Greek and Trojan train, in war and discord's adamantine chain. Indissolubly strong, the fatal tie is streft on both, and close compelled they die. Dreadful in arms and groaning combats grey, the bold Idomeneus controls the day. First by his hand Cothryonus was slain, swelled with false hopes, with mad ambition vain, awed by the voice of war to martial fame. From high Abyssus' distant walls he came, Assandra's love he sought, with boasts of power, and promised conquest was the proffered dower. The king consented, by his vaunts abused, the king consented but the fates refused. Proud of himself, and of the imagined bride, the field he measured with a larger stride. Him as he stalked, the rattan javelin found, vain was his breastplate to repel the wand. His dream of glory lost, he plunged to hell, his arms resounded as the boaster fell. The great Idomeneus bestrides the dead, and thus he cries, behold thy promise sped. Such is the help thy arms to Ilion bring, and such the contract of the Phrygian king. Our offers now, illustrious prince, receive. For such an aid what will not Cargos give? To conquer Troy, with ours thy forces join, and Count Catride's fairest daughter thine. Meantime on further methods to advise, come follow to the fleet thy new allies, there hear what Greece has on her part to say. He spoke, and dragged the gory corse away. This Asius viewed, unable to contain, before his chariot warring on the plain, his crowded coursers, to his squire consigned, impatient panted on his neck behind, to vengeance rising with a sudden spring. He hoped the conquest of the Rattan king. The wary Rattan, as his foe drew near, full on his throat discharged the forceful spear. Beneath the chin the point was seen to glide, and glittered extant at the further side, as when the mounting oak, or poplar tall, or pine, fit mast for some great admiral, groans to the oft-halved axe, with many a wound, then spreads a length of ruin o'er the ground. So sunk proud Asius in that dreadful day, and streft before his much-loved coursers lay. He grinds the dust distained with streaming gore, and fierce in death lies foaming on the shore. Deprived of motion, stiff with stupid fear, stands all aghast his trembling charioteer, nor shuns the foe, nor turns the steeds away, but falls transfixed and unresisting prey Pierced by Antilochus, he pants beneath the stately car and labors out his breath. The Sactius steeds their mighty master gaunt remain the prize of Nestor's youthful son. Stabbed at the sight, Deiphobus drew nigh, and made with force the vengeful weapon fly. The Rhyton saw and stooping caused to glance from his slope shield the disappointed lance. Beneath the spacious targe a blazing round, thick with bull hides and brazen orbits bound, on his raised arm by two strong braces stayed, he lay collected in defensive shade. O'er his safe head the javelin idly sung, and on the tinkling verge more faintly rung. Even then the spear the vigorous arm confessed, and pierced obliquely King Hypsender's breast, warmed in his liver, to the ground it bore. The chief, his people's guardian now no more, not unattended the proud Trojan cries, nor unrevenged, lamented Asius lies. For thee, through hell's black portals stand displayed, this mate shall joy thy melancholy shade. Hard-peering anguish, at the haughty boast, touched every Greek, but Nestor's son the most. Great as he was, his pious arms attend, and his broad buckler shields his slaughtered friend, till sad Meestius and Calastor bore his homeward body to the tented shore. Nor yet from fight Idomeneus withdraws, resolved to perish in his country's cause, or find some foe whom heaven and he shall doom, to wail his fate in death's eternal gloom. He sees Alathos in the front aspire, great Asiates was the hero's sire, his spouse Chippodaeum, divinely fair, Anchises' eldest hope and darling care, who harmed her parents and her husband's heart, with beauty, sense, and every work of art. He once of Ilion's youth the loveliest boy, the fairest she of all the fair of Troy. By Neptune now the hapless hero dies, who covers with a cloud those beauteous eyes, and fetters every limb, yet bent to meet his fate he stands nor shuns the lance of Crete, fixed as some column or deep-rooted oak, while the winds sleep his breast received the stroke. Before the ponderous stroke his corslet yields, long used to ward the death and fighting fields. The riven armor sends a jarring sound, his laboring heart heaves with so strong a bound. The long lance shakes and vibrates in the wand, fast flowing from its source, as prone he lay. Life's purple tide impetuous gushed away. Then Idomen insulting o'er the slain, behold Deiphobus, nor vaunt in vain. See, on one Greek 3 Trojan ghosts attend, this my third victim to the shades I send. Approaching now thy boasted might approve, and try the prowess of the seed of Jove. From Jove, enamored of a mortal dame, great Minos, guardian of his country, came. Deucalion, blameless prince, was Minos' heir. His firstborn I, the third from Jupiter, bore spacious Crete, and her bold sons, I reign. And thence my ships transport me through the main. Lord of a host, o'er all my host I shine, a scourge to thee, thy father, and thy line. The Trojan herd uncertain or to meet, alone, with venturous arms the king of Crete, or seek auxiliar force at length decreed, to call some hero to partake the deed. Forthwith Aeneas rises to his thought, for him in Troy's remotest lines he sought, where he, incensed at partial Priam, stands, and sees superior posts in meaner hands. To him ambitious of so great an aid, the bold Deiphobus approached and said, Now, Trojan prince, employ thy pious arms, if e'er thy bosom felt fair honor's charms. Alathus dies, thy brother and thy friend, come, and the warrior's loved remains defend. Beneath his cares thy early youth was trained, one table fed you and one roof contained. This deed to fierce Idomeneus we owe, haste and revenge it on th insulting foe. Aeneas heard, and for a space resigned, to tender pity all his manly mind. Then rising in his rage he burns to fight. The Greek awaits him with collected might, as the fell boar on some rough mountain's head, armed with wild terrors, and to slaughter bred. When the loud rusties rise, and shout from far, attends the tumult, and expects the war. O'er his bent back the bristly horrors rise, fire stream and lightning from his sanguine eyes. His foaming tusks both dogs and men engage, but most his hunters rouse his mighty rage. So stood Idomeneus, his javelin shook, and met the Trojan with a lowering look. Antilochus, Epirus, were near, the youthful offspring of the god of war, Marion and Nepharius in field renowned. To these the warrior sent his voice around. Fellows in arms, your timely aid unite. Lo, great Aeneas rushes to the fight, sprung from a god and more than mortal bold. He fresh in youth, and I in arms grown old. Else should this hand, this hour decide the strife, the great dispute of glory or of life. He spoke, and all, as with one soul, obeyed. Their lifted bucklers cast a dreadful shade around the chief. Aeneas too demands, assisting forces of his native bands, Paris, Deiphobus, Agenor, join, Colcides and captains of the Trojan line, in order follow all embodied train. Like Ida's flocks proceeding o'er the plain, before his fleecy care, erect and bold, stalks the proud ram, the father of the bold. With joy the swain surveys them, as he leads to the cool fountains through the well-known meads. So joys Aeneas as his native band moves on in rank and stretches o'er the land. Round dread Elephas now the battle rose, on every side the steely circle grows, now battered breastplates and hacked helmets ring, and o'er their heads unheeded javelins sing. Above the rest, two towering chiefs appear, their great Idomeneus, Aeneas here. Like gods of war, dispensing fate, they stood, and burned to drench the ground with mutual blood. The Trojan weapon whizzed along in air, the Rhetan saw and shunned the brazen spear, sent from an arm so strong the missive wood stuck deep in earth and quivered where it stood. But Oncomus received the Rhetan's stroke, the forceful spear his hollow corslet broke. It ripped his belly with a ghastly wound, and rolled the smoking entrails on the ground. Stretched on the plain, he sobs away his breath, and furious grasps the bloody dust in death. The victor from his breast the weapon tears, his spoils he could not for the shower of spears, though now unfit an active war to wage. Heavy with umbrous arms, stiff with cold age, his listless limbs unable for the course. In standing fight he yet maintains his force, till faint with labor, and by foes repelled, his tired slow steps he drags from off the field. Deiphobus beheld him as he passed, and fired with hate, a parting javelin cast. The javelin erred, but held its course along, and pierced Ascalaphus the brave and young. The son of Mars fell gasping on the ground, and gnashed the dust, all bloody with his wound. Nor knew the furious father of his fall, high-throned amidst the great Olympian hall. On golden clouds immortal synod sate, detained from bloody war by Jove and fate. Now where in dust the breathless hero lay, for slain Ascalaphus commenced the fray. Deiphobus to seize his helmet flies, and from his temples brand's the glittering prize. Valiant as Mars, Meriones drew near, and on his loaded arm discharged his spear. He drops the weight, disabled with the pain, the hollow helmet rings against the plain. Swift as a vulture leaping on his prey, from his torn arm the Grecian rent away the reeking javelin and rejoined his friends. His wounded brother good Polites tends, around his waist his pious arms he threw, and from the rage of battle gently drew him his swift coursers on his splendid car. Rapt from the lessening thunder of the war, to Troy they drove him, groaning from the shore, and sprinkling, as he passed, the sands with gore. Meanwhile fresh slaughter bathes the sanguine ground, heaps fall on heaps, and heaven and earth resound. Bold Aphareus by great Aeneas bled, as toward the chief he turned his daring head. He pierced his throat, the bending head depressed, beneath his helmet nods upon his breast. His shield reversed o'er the fallen warrior lies, and everlasting slumber seals his eyes. Antilochus, as Thune turned him round, transpierced his back with a dishonest wand. The hollow vein that to the neck extends, along the train his eager javelin rends. Supine he falls, and to his social train spreads his imploring arms, but spreads in vain. Civ exulting victor, leaping where he lay, from his broad shoulders tore the spoils away. His time observed foreclosed by foes around, on all sides thick the peals of arms resound. His shield embossed the ringing storm sustains, but he impervious and untouched remains. Great Neptune's care preserved from hostile rage this youth, the joy of Nestor's glorious age. In arms intrepid, with the first he fought, faced every foe and every danger sought. His winged lance, resistless as the wind, obeys each motion of the master's mind. Restless it flies, impatient to be free, and meditates the distant enemy. The son of Asius, Adamas, drew near, and struck his target with the brazen spear. Fierce in his front, but Neptune wards the blow, and blunts the javelin of eluded foe. In the broad buckler half the weapon stood, splintered on earth flew half the broken wood. Disarmed, he mingled in the Trojan crew, but Merion's spear o'ertook him as he flew. Deep in the belly's rim an entrance found, where sharp the pang and mortal is the wound. Bending he fell, and doubled to the ground, lay panting, thus an ox in fetters tied, while death's strong pangs distend his laboring side. His bulk enormous on the field displays, his heaving heart beats thick as ebbing life decays. The spear the conqueror from his body drew, and death's dim shadows swarm before his view. Next brave Deipyrus in dust was laid, King Helenus waved high the thresh and blade, and smote his temples with an arm so strong, the helm fell off and rolled amid the throng. There for some luckier Greek at rest surprised, for dark in death the godlike owner lies. Raging with grief, great Menelaus burns, and fraught with vengeance to the victor turns. Batch up the ponderous lance in act to throw, and as stood adverse with the bended bow, full on his breast the Trojan arrow fell, but harmless bounded from the plated steel, as on some ample barn's well-hardened floor. The winds collected at each open door, while the broad fan with force is whirled around. Light leaps the golden grain resulting from the ground, so from the steel that guards Atrides' heart, repelled to distance flies the bounding dart. Atrides, watchful of the unwary foe, pierced with his lance the hand that grasped the bow, and nailed it to the yew. The wounded hand trailed the long lance that marked with blood the sand, but good Agenor gently from the wound the spear solicits, and the bandage bound. A sling soft wool, snatched from a soldier's side, at once the tent and ligature supplied. Behold! Pisander, urged by fate's decree, springs through the ranks to fall, and fall by thee, great Menelaus. To enchant thy fame, high towering in the front, the warrior came. First the sharp lance was by Catrides thrown, the lance far distant by the winds was blown, nor pierced Pisander through Catrides' shield. Pisander's spear fell shivered on the field. Not so discouraged, to the future blind, vain dreams of conquest swell his haughty mind. Dauntless he rushes where the Spartan lord, like lightning brandished his far-beaming sword. His left arm high opposed the shining shield, his right beneath the covert poleaxe held, and Caliph's cloudy grain the handle made. Distinct with studs and brazen was the blade, this on the helm discharged a noble blow, the plume dropped nodding to the plain below, shorn from the crest. Atrides waved his steel, deep through his front the weighty falchion fell, the crashing bones before its force gave way. In dust and blood the groaning hero lay, forced from their ghastly corpse, and spouting gore. The clotted eyeballs tumble on the shore, and fierce Catrides spurned him as he bled, tore off his arms, and, cloud exulting, said, Thus, Trojans, thus, at length be taught to fear, O race perfidious, who delight in war. Already noble deeds ye have performed, a princess rape transcends a navy stormed. In such bold feats your impious might approve, without assistance or the fear of Jove. The violated rights, the ravished dame, our heroes slaughtered and our ships on flame. Crimes heaped on crimes, shall bend your glory down, and whelm in ruins yon flagitious town. O thou great Father, Lord of earth and skies, above the thought of man supremely wise, if from thy hand the fates of mortals flow, from whence this favor to an impious foe? A godless crew abandoned and unjust, still breathing rapine, violence, and lust. The best of things beyond their measure cloy, sleep's balmy blessing, love's endearing joy, the feast, the dance, whate'er mankind desire, even the sweet charms of sacred numbers tire. But Troy forever reaps a dire delight, in thirst of slaughter and in lust of fight. This said, he ceased while yet the cuirass shaped the bloody armor which his train received, then sudden mixed among the warring crew, and the bold son of Pyclaemenes slew. Harpavian had through Asia travelled far, following his martial father to the war. Through filial love he left his native shore, never to behold it more. His unsuccessful spear he hants to fling against the target of this Spartan king. Thus of his lance disarmed, from death he flies, and turns around his apprehensive eyes. Through the hip transpiring as he fled, the shaft of Marion mingled with the dead. Beneath the bone the glancing point descends, and, driving down, the swelling bladder rends. Sunk in his sad companion's arms he lay, and in short pantings scobbed his soul away, like some vile worm extended on the ground, while life's red torrent gushed from out the wound. On his car the Paphlagonian train, in slow procession bore from off the plain. The pensive father now no more, attends the mournful pomp along the shore, and unavailing tears profusely shed, and unrevenged, deplored his offspring dead. Paris from far the moving sight beheld, with pity softened and with fury swelled. His honored host, a youth of matchless grace, and loved of all the Paphlagonian race, with his full strength he bent his angry bow, and winged the feathered vengeance at the foe. A chief there was, the brave Eupenor named, for riches much and more for virtue famed, who held his seat in Corinth's stately town. Polydas' son, a seer of old renown, oft had the father told his early doom. By arms abroad or slow disease at home, he limbed his vessel, prodigal of breath, and chose the certain glorious path to death. Beneath his ear the pointed arrow went, the soul came issuing at the narrow vent. His limbs, unnerved, drop useless on the ground, and everlasting darkness shades him round. Nor knew great Hector how his legions yield, cramped in the cloud and tumult of the field. Wide on the left the force of Greece commands, and conquest hovers o'er high in bands. With such a tide superior virtue swayed, and he that shakes the solid earth gave aid. But in the center Hector fixed remind, where first the gates were forced, and bulwarks guined, there on the margin of the hoary deep, their naval station where the Ajaes keep, and where low walls confine the beating tides, whose humble barrier scarce the foe divides, where late in fight both foot and horse engaged, and all the thunder of the battle raged. There joined, the whole Boeotian strength remains, the proud Iconians with their sweeping trains, Lurians and Pythians and Pisan force, but join repel not Hector's fiery course. The flower of Athens, Statius, Phidias led, Bias and great Menestius at their head, mages the strong the Episan bands enthralled, and Dryas prudent, and Camphian bold, the Pythians, Medon, famed for martial might, and brave Poteres active in the fight. This drew from Phiclus his noble line, Ephialus' son, and that Coelius thine, young Ajax' brother. By a stolen embrace, he dwelt far distant from his native place. By his fierce stepdame from his father's reign, expelled and exiled for her brother slain. These rule the Phrygians, and their arms employ, mixed with Boeotians on the shores of Troy. Now side by side, with like unwearied care, each Ajax labored through the field of war. So when two lordly bulls, with equal toil, force the bright plowshare through the fallow soil, joined to one yoke, the stubborn earth they tear, and trace large furrows with the shining share. O'er their huge limbs the foam descends in snow, and streams of sweat down their sour foreheads flow. A train of heroes followed through the field, who bore by turns great Ajax' sevenfold shield. Whene'er he breathed, remissive of his might, tired with the incessant slaughters of the fight, no following troops his brave associate grace. In close engagement and unpratized race, the Laurian squadrons nor the javelin wield, nor bear the helm, nor lift the moony shield, but skilled from far the flying shaft to wing, or whirl the sounding pebble from the sling. Dexterous with these they aim a certain wound, or fell the distant warrior to the ground. Thus in the van the Telamonian train, thronged in bright arms, a pressing fight maintain. Far in the rear the Laurian archers lie, whose stones and arrows intercept the sky. The mingled tempest on the foes they pour, Troy's scattering orders open to the shower. Now had the Greeks eternal fame acquired, and the galled Ilians to their walls retired. But sage Polydamas, discreetly brave, addressed great Hector, and this counsel gave: though great in all thou seem'st averse to lend impartial audience to a faithful friend, to gods and men thy matchless worth is known, and every art of glorious war thy own, but in cool thought and counsel to excel. How widely differs this from warring well! Content with what the bounteous gods have given, seek not alone to engross the gifts of heaven. To some the powers of bloody war belong, to some sweet music and the charm of song. To few, and wondrous few, has Jove assigned a wise, extensive, all-considering mind. Their guardians these, the nations round confess, and towns and empires for their safety bless. If heaven have lodged this virtue in my breast, attend, O Hector, what I judge the best. See, as thou must, on dangers danger spread, and war's whole fury burns around thy head. Behold, distressed within yon hostile wall, how many Trojans yield, disperse, or fall. What troops, outnumbered, scarce the war maintain, and what brave heroes at the ships lie slain. Here cease thy fury, and the chiefs and kings, convoke to council, weigh the sum of things, whether the gods succeeding our desires, to yon tall ships to bear the Trojan fires, or quit the fleet, and pass unhurt away, contented with the conquest of the day. I fear, lest Greece, not yet undone, pay the large debt of last revolving sun. Achilles, great Achilles, yet remains on yonder decks, and yet o'erlooks the plains. The council pleased, and Hector with a bound leaped from his chariot on the trembling ground, swift as he leaped his clanging arms resound. To guard this post he cried thy art employ, and here detain the shattered youth of Troy. Where yonder heroes faint, I bend my way, and hasten back to end the doubtful day. This said, the towering chief prepares to go, shakes his white plumes that to the breezes flow, and seems a moving mountain topped with snow. Through all his host, inspiring force, he flies, and bids anew the martial thunder rise. To pant the sun at Hector's high command, haste the bold leaders of the Trojan band. But round the battlements, and round the plain, for many a chief he looked, but looked in vain. Deiphobus, nor Helenus the seer, nor Asius' son, nor Asius' self appear, for these were pierced with many a ghastly wound. Some cold in death, some groaning on the ground, some low in dust, a mournful object lay. High on the wall some breathed their souls away. Far on the left, amid the throng he found, cheering the troops and dealing deaths around, the graceful Paris whom with fury moved. Opprobrious thus, impatient chief reproved. Ill-fated Paris, slave to womankind, as smooth of face as fraudulent of mind. Where is Deiphobus, where Asius gone, the godlike father and intrepid son? The force of Helenus, dispensing fate, and great Cothreonus, so feared of late. Black fate chains o'er thee from avenging gods. Imperial Troy from her foundations nods. Whelmed in thy country's ruin shalt thou fall, and one devouring vengeance swallow all. When Paris thus, my brother and my friend, thy warm impatience makes thy tongue offend. In other battles I deserved thy blame, though then not deedless, nor unknown to fame. But since yon rampart by thy arms lay low, I scattered slaughter from my fatal bow. The chiefs you seek on yonder shore lie slain. Of all those heroes, two alone remain, Deiphobus and Helenus the seer, each now disabled by a hostile spear. Go then successful where thy soul inspires, this heart and hand shall second all thy fires. What with this arm I can, prepare to know, till death for death be paid and blow for blow. But 'tis not ours, with forces not our own, to combat, strength is of the gods alone. These words the hero's angry mind assuage, then fierce they mingle where the thickest rage. Around Polydamas, disdained with blood, Abraian, fails, stern Corpheus stood, Palmus, with Polypoetes the divine, and two bold brothers of Chipotion's line, who reached fair Ilion, from Hassania far. The former day the next engaged in war, as when from gloomy clouds a whirlwind springs, that bears Jove's thunder on its dreadful wings. Wide o'er the blasted fields the tempest sweeps, Ben gathered, settles on the hoary deeps. The afflicted deeps tumultuous mix and roar, the waves behind impel the waves before. Wide rolling, foaming high and tumbling to the shore. Thus rank on rank, the thick battalions throng. Chief urged on chief and man drove man along. Far o'er the plains, in dreadful order bright, the brazen arms reflect a beamy light. Full in the blazing band great Hector shined, like Mars commissioned to confound mankind. Before him flaming his enormous shield, like the broad sun illumined all the field. His nodding helm emits a streamy ray, his piercing eyes through all the battle stray. And, while beneath his targe he flashed along, shot terrors round, that weathered e'en the strong. Thus stalked he, dreadful death was in his look. Whole nations feared, but not in Cargive shook. The towering Ajax, with an ample stride, advanced the first, and thus the chief defied. Hector, come on thy empty threats forbear. 'Tis not thy arm, 'tis thundering Jove we fear. The skill of war to us not idly given. Lo, Greece is humbled, not by Troy but heaven. Vain are the hopes that haughty mind imparts. To force our fleet, the Greeks have hands and hearts. Long ere in flames our lofty navy fall, your boasted city, and your God-built wall, shall sink beneath us, smoking on the ground, and spread along unmeasured ruin round. The time shall come, when, chased along the plain, even thou shalt call on Jove and call in vain. Even thou shalt wish to aid thy desperate course. The wings of falcons for thy flying horse shalt run, forgetful of a warrior's fame, while clouds of friendly dust conceal thy shame. As thus he spoke, behold, in open view, on sounding wings a dexter eagle flew. To Jove's glad omen all the Graians rise, and hail with shouts his progress through the skies. Far hoeing lammers bound from side to side, they ceased, and thus the chief of Troy replied, from whence this menace, this insulting strain? Enormous boaster, doomed to vaunt in vain, so may the gods on Hector life bestow. not that short life which mortals led below, but such as those of Jove's high lineage born. The blue-eyed maid, or he that gilds the morn, as this decisive day shall end the fame of Greece and Carcos be no more a name. And thou, imperious, if thy madness wait, the lance of Hector thou shalt meet thy fate. That giant corse, extended on the shore, shall largely feast the foals with fat and gore. He said, and like a lion stalked along, with shouts incessant earth and ocean rung. Sent from his following host, the Grecian train, with answering thunders filled the echoing plain, a shout that tore heaven's concave, and, above, shook the fixed splendors of the throne of Jove.